Good evening, everyone. How are you all? Cheers. Um, oh, delicious. Yes, indeed. What an eventful week. I know I say that every week, but first of all, I just want to say a big, big thank you to all of the people who've, kind of offered kind words of support when I put that video up this morning. About that chap who insisted I was taking backhanders from Harley Benton in order to say nasty things about an Epiphone. I wasn't nasty about the Epiphone. I just said it needed a setup and should have been set up better when it arrived. But people hear what they want to hear in a video, don't they? So thank you everyone for just kind of wading in and offering your kind words. Let's see who we've got in. Let's scroll up the chat a little bit. Deco Dude, Nigel Pickett, Phil Simmons, Timbo, Emperor Pigeon, Gary Tomlinson, David Evans, Dash Shafi and Clark, Ozzy's in. Yes, evening Ozzy, Phil Simmons, Chip Young, Johnny Random, how you doing, mate? Thank you once again for turning up on, I don't know what the weather's like with you at the moment, but up here it's, it looks quite sunny out there at the moment. You can probably see the glare on my bald head from the window there. Yes, he probably does have an Epiphone, mate. I actually like the guitar, but it is for sale. I'll just put that out there now. The reason it's for sale is part of what I was talking about earlier. It being an eventful week, I got a rather terse email from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Basically, they want 400 quid off me. Well, I've paid them it, but I could, and this is the same week when I've had to buy a new laptop as well, so I could do with moving the guitar on. So if anybody's interested in a very, very well set up and sorted Epiphone Les Paul Studio, ping me an email through the website, and we'll talk. It is a nice guitar. Don't get me wrong. It's just it's like this one does everything that does and more. And the itch has been scratched, to put it that way. I was curious to see what these new Epiphones are like, and now it's set up really nicely. It is a very, very nice guitar. It's better than many Epiphones that I've played. But it's just, I don't see it getting a lot of use here. That said, it is featured in tomorrow's video. The video I usually put up at 12 o'clock on a Saturday. It's basically a three-way comparison, because I'm always banging on about how this guitar will do all of the things that a Les Paul can do, and will do all of the things that a Telecaster can do. And I've got a Telecaster, I've got a Les Paul, so basically I've recorded a track that has some very Telecaster-ish Telecaster sounds and some very Les Paulish Les Paul sounds, and then I play the track again on that guitar, and you'll figure out, well, you'll be able to see tomorrow just how well it measures up against the two genuine articles, if you like. I'll just say good evening to a few people. Oh, Craig's in Craig's statement. Yes, I agree with you, John. If you spend 400 quid a guitar, it should come with some sort of setup. Yeah, this has been something I've said for years. If you bought a car, even if it was the cheapest car on sale, a brand new car, what is probably the cheapest car on sale? I remember seeing an episode of Top Gear years ago where it was the Perodua Kalisa. Yes, I know, I've never heard of it either. But if you bought even the cheapest brand new car, and the first thing you had to do was take it to a service centre to get it drivable, then that wouldn't be good enough. But it seems to be de rigueur in the guitar industry that, you know, even if you buy sometimes an expensive guitar, it's, you know, it's just, okay, well, it might be set up, it might not, depends if we can be bothered. John, a $3 Gibson would need setting up. Yes, I can attest to that. Evening, Malcolm. How are you doing, mate? George is saying, picked up a Harley Benton 450 plus lemon drop for about £100 in mint condition. It's superb. Yeah, as I said in that, as I alluded to in that video yesterday, I can't swear for certain, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out if that Harley Bentons and Epiphones come off the same production line, because there are, I mean, we're talking sort of, you know, China, Indonesia, Korea, basically, aren't we? Those, and maybe Vietnam these days as well. There aren't that many factories building guitars, and they all build guitars for multiple different brands. So it's not beyond the realm of imagination that the Harley Benton that you pay 200 quid for is essentially the same guitar with a different badge as the Epiphone that you pay 400 quid for. Hi, John. What have a flamingo and the taxman have in common? They can both stick the bills up their arse. Nice one, Jim. The old ones are the best. Yes, indeed. My version of that one is pelicans, penguins, and the taxman. But yes, indeed. But yeah, the strange thing is I filled my tax return in, you know, on time, as you do, being a good model citizen, and you click on the link and it says, you know, click here to find out how much tax you owe and to pay your tax. So I clicked on the link and I saw the figure and I thought, oh, okay, that's much less than I was expecting. And then you know, you get a snotty email weeks later saying you haven't paid enough tax. Well, you should have told me how much to pay in the first place then. But anyway, an inefficient government department. Who'd have thunk it? Never bought a guitar that played how I would want it to straight out of the box, but that's my setup preferences. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, mate. Years ago, I remember reading an interview with Richie Blackmore, of all people. I think it was in Guitarist magazine, and he was saying in the 70s, his guitar tech basically bought a guitar from Eric Clapton's guitar tech. It was a Strat, obviously. And you know, this was like straight from from Eric to Richie, basically, and Richie found Eric's guitar unplayable because it was set up how Eric liked his guitars setting up. Never heard anything negative about PRS models. Might be next for me, says RF. Yeah, I've never played a PRS that was bad, but by the same token, I've never played a PRS that made me love it either. There's that moment, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's that moment when you get a guitar, okay, and it's a nice guitar, and you're playing it, and you play it for, you know, a little while, and there's a transition where it goes from being a guitar or a nice guitar to being your guitar. Do you know what I mean? The one that's just, oh yes, that's my guitar. And no PRS has ever kind of done that transition for me. I can't fault them. I think they are beautiful looking guitars, if a little bit ostentatious, it has to be said. Your tax bill obviously set up by the same person as the Epiphone. Yes, it wouldn't surprise me, mate. But, you know, I can't fault PRSs, and, you know, a lot of my favourite players have got absolutely gorgeous sounds out of them, but they just don't grab my heart. I got a Squire Affinity. It was set up well too. The Harley Benton is easily on a par with the Affinity. Yeah, those, I'll tell you what, if we're talking Squires, the ones I have a real soft spot for are the Bullets. A mate of mine has a Bullet Strat, and it's beautiful. Jack Pearson, famous, you country blues session guitar player, plays a Squire Bullet, stock, no mods, nothing. One of my students has got a Bullet Telecaster, great little guitar. In fact, it featured in a video a while ago where I put some new pickups in it for her. I do like those Bullet guitars. They do punch well above their weight. Is it the scale length you mean for the PRS? It could be, Steve. It could be that 25-inch scale length. It could be that. I don't know. I've never really thought, but I've got that Harley Benton PRS knockoff, and well, you know the story behind that because I won't bore you with it again, but that really does kind of feel like my guitar whenever I pick it up. Craig saying my Charvel Telly was one of the few guitars that I didn't need to do anything with when I got it. Yeah. Many years ago, again, a student of mine had a Charvel Telly, and it always struck me as a bit of an oddball guitar because it was a beautiful Telecaster guitar, but it was like kind of Arctic white all over, even the neck, with a reverse pointy Charvel headstock, and all the hardware was black. It looked like it was built for, kind of a metal musician, kind of 80s metal. It looked like it was built for somebody out of, Warrant or Rat, like that. But it was just purebred Telecaster through and through. And it just struck me as a bit of an odd guitar because, the guys who want a guitar that has that sort of 80s kind of glam metal look, aren't going to want Telecaster sounds, and people who want Telecaster sounds aren't going to want a guitar that looks like that. It struck me as a bit of an odd guitar, but it was a beautiful thing to play. What are your thoughts on strings? I'm a student using Ernie Ball 10s, but I've heard the cheap ones aren't much worse. They're like a quarter of the price or less. I've said this many times. If you're looking for great value strings, legacy strings. These are, I would put these up against D'Addario or Ernie Ball or Rotor Sound or any brand of strings, and they're about £4 a set. Strings are not Strings R Us. Why do I keep saying Strings R Us whenever I mention this company? It's Strings Direct. That's where you can get them from. I'm not sure if it's their in-house brand, but I've not seen them anywhere else. Great strings. I buy them in bulk, and they are absolutely tip-top. I have never broken a string with any of those. So, yeah, legacy strings. The ones to avoid in terms of cheap strings are Tiger strings. I had some of those. They're like ridiculously cheap, about £2 a set. You'll find them on eBay. But you might as well just chuck your £2 down the drain because they aren't usable. Weird things like, like the G string, I think, on the set that I tried was pretty much silent. It was just so quiet compared to the other strings, both unplugged and plugged in. And they were just a crap product, to be honest with you. With Legacy, you get a spare E and a spare B string as well, yes. Better do a Legacy strings disclaimer, quick, John. No, I'm not. I put my hand in my pocket and pay for all my gear. I'm, as I covered this morning. But mainly it has to be said because, and this might seem a bit daft, me saying this, I don't think of myself as a YouTuber. I don't think of myself as having that kind of clout to go to people and say, give me some free stuff. You get people who make their living on YouTube who call themselves YouTubers. YouTube is my hobby. And when I think about when I started teaching the guitar 30 years ago this year now, bloody hell, the way that you advertised was you put an advert, you paid for an advert in the Yellow Pages, and you paid for an advert in the local press. These days, I make videos, which is my hobby. It tickles the old creative muscles, and it earns me money, and it advertises my core business, which is doing guitar lessons. So it's just, a win-win. That's the way I view doing the YouTube stuff. So, hence, I don't think of myself as really needing to go to companies and say, give me some stuff. It's just, it would feel a bit odd doing that, to be honest with you. I've used fancy branded strings, but the generic Johnny Brook ones from CPC felt and sound better than the fancy stuff. I'll give Legacy strings a try, says Emperor Pigeon. Yes, I mean, I can't fault them. I buy about, maybe a dozen sets at the time, and I just, they sound good. They don't break, Teesside Times guitar lessons, Steve. Yes, you remember my old ad, don't you? There's my pal Steve there, producer, bass player extraordinaire. Bottleneck Bob's in. How's the Gordon Smith shaping up, Bob? Bob bought my Gordon Smith, but I'm sure it's gone to a good home. Are you enjoying it, mate? It's Friday. It's John o'clock. I'm cracking one open immediately. Yes, we usually cover this topic, don't we? This evening it is the usual. The Morrison's delivery turned up yesterday, and as I've said before, their export lager is it's the Harley Benton of beers. It's essentially Stella basically, but a lot cheaper. Did you put postcards in newsagent's window next to French lessons? Yes, I know what you're talking about, Ian. Yes, indeed. No, no. I went straight for the professional advertising, straight for the Yellow Pages, and local press. The Teesside Times, as Steve alluded to there, which was the free newspaper that used to come through your door once a week. I bought these Olympus strings, and 2 times the high E unravelled itself. They are Brian May's sponsored brand too. I thought Brian May used those. What were they're either Optima or Maxima. Those gold-plated strings. That's. I'm sure I saw that. Is it the Rig Rundown kind of thing, the Premier Guitar thing, where they were talking about those? I didn't know he'd switched. Many phenomenal musicians have suffered quite severe mental illness. Billy Joel, Jerry Rafferty, Ray Davies, Clapton. Thoughts on causes, pressure to constantly perform at a high standard, etc. I wouldn't like to offer an informed opinion on that, to be honest. Mental illness can strike anybody. It's, without wanting to go into the details, a family member of mine has, struggled with mental illness a little bit, and it's you couldn't pin down the cause. It was just something that came out of the blue. It's like an illness, like any other illness that can strike without any apparent obvious cause. So I wouldn't like to offer a professional opinion, to be honest, or not professional opinion, but an informed opinion. John, you missed the message. I said I'm loving the GS. I put a set of elixirs on. It sounds epic. Good for you, Bob. I would when you're going to do a video with the Gordon Smith, mate. I'd love to see how it's settling into its new home. Um, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Malcolm. You know, keeping your chin up, mate. You know, but you know, thank you for sharing that with us, mate. You know, it's just by posting that there, you have done, you know, just your little bit in removing that remaining little bit of stigma that goes along with it. And I admire you for doing that, mate. Sometimes it's too much success too soon with all the trappings. Yeah, I suppose there is that does put me in mind of a little bit of a story, actually, which isn't music related, and I'm not really a sports fan, but this story does tickle me. Georgie Best, you know, footballer, you know, in his heyday in the early 70s, you know, he'd been partying hard, and you know the kind of porter came up to the hotel room, and the porter was was like a fan of his, you know. And the porter came up to the hotel room, and there's naked women, and there's, you know, kind of bottles of empty champagne bottles all over the place, and everybody's just kind of sprawled out. And you know, this porter looked down at the sleeping form of George Best and said, "George, where did it all go wrong, son?" You know, so sometimes living the dream is just living the dream, isn't it? It all started with employers bullying. Now it's coping with the stresses of my wife's full-time care, being my wife's full-time carer. Well, you know, chin up, mate. That's all I can say. You know, I'm not a counsellor. You know, I sit in front of a webcam and spout, you know, all kinds of perceived wisdom, but you know, I don't claim to have an informed opinion or informed views on the matter, but you know, just chin up, mate. You know, chest out, shoulders back, chin up. Go on, you know, face the world. What are your thoughts on Oasis? Well, I'm probably going to get a hard time for saying this, but I like them. I do. You know, it's interesting how, with the benefit of perspective, you know, there are certain, you know, radio stations now that are devoted to classic rock, and they'll play an Oasis track next to a Bad Company or a Led Zeppelin track. Not a massive fan of Noel of Liam, to be honest with you, but I think Noel is you know, a talented songwriter, and he's I wouldn't say he's a great guitar player. You know, he's not one of the greats, but he is the perfect guitarist for the songs that he puts out. I mean, that's why I did. Ages ago. That's why I did the solo from "Don't Look Back in Anger." And you know, as a solo analysis video, it's a great solo. It's melodic, it's tuneful, it's not virtuoso, but it's the perfect solo for the song. And he has that knack of just thinking, okay, now, you know, in terms of when to place a note, just there, and which note to play. And the first album, I think, is probably the best. What's the Story? Morning Glory is a good second album. Then it all sort of started to unravel a little bit, but you know, two great albums straight out the traps. You know, I still listen to those albums. I like them. You know. John, I don't let it ruin my life. I can still sing and play the guitar, which is the best therapy. Well, good for you, Malcolm. Crack on, mate. Rick Beato did What Makes This Song Great for Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger. Yes, and I'm a big fan of those Beato videos. And, you know, that it was Rick's video on Don't Look Back in Anger that spurred me on to do the solo analysis on it, because Rick didn't do a solo analysis. I think I said in that video, I said, "All right, Rick, let the fat lad do it," you know. I like Richie Blackmore as a player, but I wouldn't want to go for a pint with him. Yeah, that is true. I was having this discussion in a thread with someone this week sometime about, how easy is it to compartmentalize, your view of the person and your view and your love for their music, and does it put you off their music if you find out that the person is, let's say, a bit of a dick. I can't put it any other way. Have you seen Rick Beato's book? I have been given a copy of the book, and it was that. Well, I'm not sure how legit. Not legit, but how up to date the copy that I was given. But it was essentially a lot of handwritten stuff that had been scanned and bunged into a PDF, and it was a bit full on, I am thinking of shelling out for the Beato book, actually, and maybe doing a review of it. Is that something people would be interested in seeing? Just let me know. I once saw a guitarist, Paul, in a magazine where he was rated 7th best guitarist. Gary Moore was 52nd. You have to be joking. Yeah, these put readers' polls in magazines, and not just in magazines, but for this kind of thing, it often captures just a snapshot of what's popular at the time. The one that really sticks in my mind is going back to the millennium. When we were all worried about the Y2K bug and all of that. Remember all of that? Takes you back, doesn't it? But there was a Channel 4 thing on in the UK about the most influential musicians of the millennium. It was one of these kind of end of millennium things. And you're not going to believe this, but Johann Sebastian Bach, who essentially invented the chromatic scale that we all use these days, that all instruments are tuned to, equal temperament and all of that. I've done a video on it, search it out. It's called The Mathematics of Music. He basically invented the DNA of modern music in 1740. He is apparently, according to this viewers poll on Channel 4, less influential than Robbie Williams. There you go. I think the top 10 lists and the like are just clickbait. Yeah, there is that, but I do like kind of watching them because it's not because I think that, oh, okay, so that's the best thing. It provides an interesting, as I say, snapshot of what people are thinking at the time. I met Blackmore in a pub at Whitley Bay after a gig at the ice rink. The man is a complete knacker. You're not the first person to say that, Nate. It's I think a bit of a giveaway really is when there is a band, okay, and there's one person who's like the main guy in that band. I'm thinking of like Yngwie's band or Richie's, Rainbow. When you look at the turnover of musicians in that band, there's essentially a new lineup with every album. It does kind of tell you something about how easy that person is to work with, doesn't it? Didn't the Beatles do a tribute, Get Back? Here we go. Yes, there you go. Any opinions of Richard Thompson's playing? I can't claim to be a big expert, but I have heard, because that I'll be honest with you, that sort of English folky sort of stuff, it never really floated me boat, so I never sort of pulled at that thread too much. But I have heard examples of him playing, and he can rattle it, can't he? He can really kind of rattle the Strat. it's never really been a front and center in my radar. But each to their own, I suppose. He has got the sort of that Neil Young thing going on with his voice, hasn't he, as well? Which is, I don't mean it's he sounds like Neil Young. I mean it's that kind of voice that either you love or you don't. Richard Thompson is stunning. I'd give my right arm to be able to play like that. Yeah, as I say, great player, but it's just that genre of music that never really grabbed me. I got to tell you, Yngwie should become a folk singer. Have you seen the YouTube video of Pink Floyd live in Pompeii performing Echoes? What do you think? I've got somewhere. I've still got a VHS of Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, and have watched it many, many, many times. That was a fantastic performance. Thank you, Darren. Have you heard Mick Hutchinson of Clark Hutchinson? No, I haven't. I haven't. So again, another name for me to remember. Oh, by the way, yes, I haven't told you, have I? Excuse me, I'm just going to grab another beer. Usually, at some point in these Friday evening sessions, I tell you what's coming up on the channel in the following few days. Tomorrow, as I said, it's a three-way comparison between my signature guitar and a Telecaster and a Les Paul. Then Monday's video is one that was requested on this very live stream, I think last week or the week before. If anybody knows the name Danny Custo, then that will probably tell you what band we're doing. And then Tuesday, I'm doing another one of these kind of, videos where I blether on about some of my favourite stuff. This week, we are looking at my 5 favourite blues guitar players. Wednesday, we're doing, what am I drinking? It's Morrison's Export Lager, mate. Wednesday, we're doing another chord progressions video, another commonly used chord progression that is, just part of the series that I'm doing. It's a bit funky this week, a bit sort of fusiony, funky, kind of soulful, that sort of thing. Thursday, we're looking at, I've done my first proper recording with the it's down there, you can't see it, and I can't lift it up because the wire's too short. The Yamaha THR5. I use it all the time for doing sort of recording little examples and stuff for students during lessons, and I use it for, doing the odd kind of bit of practice and stuff. But I've never actually recorded it in a track yet, so so that's what's on Thursday. Kebabs for dinner tonight, John? No. Tonight is Rogan Josh night. We haven't had a proper takeaway curry in a few weeks, so we're gonna be having one of those. Yes, indeed, Tom Robinson Band, the one that helps you remember your times tables. That's the one. 2468 Motorway. That's 2 solos in that song, and we're doing both of them on Monday. Great solo. It's just such a fantastic, simple, but effective pentatonic little solo. John, tube or solid state? Got Black Star combo. Do I pull the trigger on a tube one? These days, it's difficult to say, really. It depends what your requirements are, to be honest. If you want one amp that will get you 99% the way to lots and lots of different sounds, then you can get something solid state that will do that very, very convincingly. And Black Star, I've never played through a Black Star amp that I didn't like the sound of. And the thing about Black Star amps and these kind of more modern solid state and modeling combos, the good ones at least anyway, the thing that they do, Katana springs to mind. The thing that they do is they make a sound that sounds like the guitar you hear on the record. It's almost instant gratification. But if you want just one main good sound that you can just shape and make it into your sound, that it's one core sound that you can add a bit of chorus to, or a bit of delay to, or add a bit of drive to, or something, but it's still basically that core sound, then valves or tubes are the way to go. And I don't think you can go far wrong with Bugera. Is it Bugera, Bugera? I've heard it pronounced many different ways. Their little V5 Infinium home practice amp, that's something I'm that close to pulling the trigger on myself, actually. But it's a case of, if I'm going to get it, it's like, well, I'm going to have to do a review, and then I'm going to have to buy a decent microphone and, mic it up. And it's just all the kind of knock-on things that I would have to do to get it conveyed properly. But yeah, I'm old school. I do like valves, but I do recognize that solid state has come a long, long, long way in recent years. Boss Katana does everything. I record with my Blackstar HT5R through its emulated speaker out, and I have to say it sounded pretty good. Yeah. I mean, long before all this kind of lockdown stuff and everything, students used to come to the house, and many of them would bring their amps, and many of the people who would bring their amps were bringing their Blackstar amps. And, I would always kind of have a play around with them and just play through them, and this sounded really good. I mean, the days that I remember, the first practice amp that I thought, oh, okay, that actually sounds good, was back in the 80s. There was a 10-watt practice amp you could buy that was branded as Ross, ROSS. It was a 10-watt thing, and it looked sort of a bit like a Fender Twin in miniature, I seem to remember. And that actually produced a great tone, for its time. And that was the first time I thought, okay, so this is where you can now actually get a practice amp that sounds like it's producing a decent tone, rather than just amplifying the signal so you can actually hear it. The HT5R is all valve. Okay. Yeah, Ozzy, I'm with you on the Sonic 8 Rock stage, mate. That's a great little piece of kit, and thank you for the tip on that. I got one in, I think it was just before Christmas, and ended up selling it to a student, and he's having a fantastic time with it. I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on one myself, because it reminded me a lot of my old Vox Tone Lab that I used for many, many years, and that was just the bee's knees as far as I was concerned. Where are we? I have an Ibanez acoustic from the 70s, a Taylor acoustic and Epiphone hollow body. I'm a lefty. Okay, fair enough, mate. On the subject of left-handed guitars, does anybody else find it a bit odd that no other musical instrument is made for left-handers? I don't think you can get a left-handed piano. Eric Clapton played a pig nose on Layla. I did not know that. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for filling me in on that. I suppose, like most people, my first, as a young man in me late teens in the 80s, my first, encounter with a pig nose was that Ralph Macchio movie, Crossroads, where he uses a pig nose. And that guitar battle at the end, I mean, you watch it now and it's a bit funny, isn't it? But it's still, I still watch it for nostalgic reasons. Where are we? Oh, you've got the Sonic Cake Twiggy Blues, have you, Bob? Yeah, I must admit that was the one I was thinking of trying out next. And they're on Amazon, and I've got Amazon Prime, so I can just kind of click the button and it's here the next day. But I have a bit of a thing going. I said at the start of the stream that it's been an eventful week this week. I decided a couple of weeks ago to get myself a little Android tablet, just for when I'm downstairs and, I can do emails. It's just easier than doing it on your phone, isn't it? Thumb typing and all that kind of stuff. So I got a little Android tablet, 100 odd quid. It worked for about a week and then died on me. Even the factory reset wouldn't bring it back to life. And that went back to Amazon, and I'm currently waiting on a refund for that. And then I'll just show you something. This is the camera that I do all of my YouTube stuff with. And as you can see, it's held together with a rubber band at the moment. It's just the battery catch where you put the SD card in. The catch on there has disintegrated, and it just won't keep the battery in and keeps cutting out. So hence it's held together with a rubber band. So I ordered a new video camera from Amazon, and that turned up, and that was dead on arrival as well. So I've got like nearly 200 quid's worth of refunds due from Amazon, and I'm sure in about 6 months' time, after multiple emails and snotty phone calls and what have you, I will get my money back. But of course, that all had to happen on the same week when I got the tax bill. So I'm just a bit peeved with Amazon at the moment, so I'm reluctant to pull the trigger on anything else from them. Oh, by the way, Toman has made a kind of online pedal simulator in their website, so people can test out pedals through the computer before buying. They've connected all the pedals. That is such a brilliant idea, isn't it? I mean, that's one of those things that when you think about it, it's obvious because the technology is there. If you can get your guitar signal into your computer, which most of us can these days, then there's no reason why that signal couldn't go down the internet pipe and come out of a pedal at the other end and you could hear it. Yeah, that's such a brilliant idea, and I bet they're not the last company to do that. Anybody recommend a half-decent mic for recording acoustic? Yes, I can, actually, and this is a kind of budget-conscious option. If you go onto Spotify and listen to the title track of a song that I did, of an album I did called The Whiskey Made Me Do It, you will hear an acoustic guitar on that, and that acoustic guitar was recorded with something called a Samson Go mic. If you can grab one of those, it's just a little USB condenser microphone, and you kind of put it. You've got to do a little bit of experimentation with mic placement and stuff, but that's how I recorded that track, and it came out absolutely fine. Yeah, get a Shure SM78. fair enough, but then you've got to have the interface and everything to go with it. If you just want a simple little condenser mic for not much money, that will do the job. Yeah, are you off? Are you, Bob? Well, we're looking forward to the Gordon Smith video, mate. Have a good one, mate. Stopped using Amazon a few years back. It stops impulse purchases. Yeah, I tend to regard Amazon now as the new Woolworths because, you know, whatever you needed. We used to have a big Woolco store near us where it was like you could go in and get like everything for a new exhaust for your car through to, you know, records and, you know, housewares and stuff. It had everything in there, and that's how I kind of view Amazon now. And as I say, we've got Amazon Prime, and it's just so easy to kind of get what you need the next day, and you get all the telly stuff as well. Why haven't they invented a guitar that plays left or right-handed? Amazon has pick and mix. They probably will. They probably will by the time we finish this live stream, mate. I used an old Akai condenser mic from the 70s to record live acoustic gigs, and it's great. Fair enough, mate. Sometimes that's just the, you know, you find a piece of kit that works, and maybe it just works for you, but it works, and that's all you need. You know, I mean, the Vox Tone Lab, there's a case in point. I used that for years. I recorded 2 albums with it, and you know, the tracks from those albums, without wishing to blow my own trumpet, they got radio airplay, and they got, you know, kind of, they got me on the BBC, just the local BBC, but, you know, and it was as cheap as chips. You know, it was just a great little budget piece of kit. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, ED. It was probably Amazon that made them fold in the end. You know, if Woolies had their wits about them, they could have become Amazon. You know, they could have become that that kind of ubiquitous one-stop shop online kind of retailer, but they were trying to use a 1970s or 1980s business model in you know, in 2000s, and it just didn't work for them. No, I wasn't on Crime Watch, mate. Although there used to be a show on Channel 4 that was a sort of addictive viewing, you know, just car crash TV. Does anybody remember Honey, We're Killing the Kids? And it was basically, you know, people who were, you know, not very good at being parents. You know, they'd as Dara O'Brien put it in one of his comedy routines, they'd feed their children lard for breakfast and wonder why they couldn't get out of bed on a morning. And what they used to do on that show was they would age the kid. They would take the 6-year-old little boy or something and say, "This is what your son's going to look like in, you know, by the time he's 40, if he continues with his current lifestyle." And they'd age him, and the result would always look like me. Every week, every single week, it would be some kind of fat, bald, double-chinned, you know, kind of, you know, disaster. Where are we? My ex-missus' dad was on Crime Watch. Dearie me. Well, that's a claim to fame, I suppose. I bought a 100-watt amp from Woolies and blew up. My first electric guitar was a Woolworths guitar, actually, the Woolworths Top 20. They were sold they were branded as Woolworths guitars in the UK. I think in the States they were branded as Tysco or Tiesco. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but you know, truly horrible thing. Anyway, I need another beer. Hang on. Oh, excuse me, there's important work to be done here. Let's see if I can get this so it doesn't look like it needs a flake in it. Oh, I'm not doing bad. That's not bad so far. Let's see if I can keep it going and get the perfect head. There, I'll settle for that. Not perfect, but, you know, it's not flowing over the top of the glass neither. I bought my one and only Shadows LP from Woolies. Oh, yes, Phil, Music for Pleasure, MFP. Am I correct in remembering, Phil, that MFP, Music for Pleasure, which was a record label we had over here, that was also the label that used to do those covers albums, those Top of the Pops albums. It was, you know, I still have fond memories of those, mainly because of the covers, if you know what I mean. Oh, you had a top 20 as your first electric, did you? Indeed, yes. Mine was bought. I bought it second hand. We used to have we still do have a local radio station around here. It was called Radio Tees back in the day, but it's now called TFM. And it was like sort of an early 80s or late 70s, about 1979, 1980 version of eBay, where it was like a phone-in program, and you could phone in and buy and sell stuff. And I bought an electric guitar on there for the princely sum of 25 quid. What about Telstar Records, John? Yes, I remember those as well. And what else was it? Bell. That was another record label. You know, Pi, there's a record label you don't hear of anymore. I ate once in the Woolworths on Princess Street in Edinburgh. Fair enough, mate. Well, you know. The Top of the Pops album covers were brilliant. Great sleeves indeed. Stars on 45. Ah, yes, now that's it, isn't it? Those sort of dance remixes of old Beatles tunes and stuff. That was a bit of a thing, wasn't it, in the early 80s? That kicked off a whole kind of thing, because there was like, you know, these kind of medleys of classic old things. You know, there was a Back to the 60s one, there was a Beach Boys one, I seem to recall. Oh yes, and yeah, great stuff. And those Stars on 45 ones, especially the Beatles ones, they were scarily accurate. Scarily. Oh yeah, Ronco Records, JT. Yes, K-Tel. Yeah, it's there was one particular K-Tel album called Dynamite that I remember playing that absolute living bones out of for ages. And it was so tinny sounding because there was like 20 odd tracks on like one LP, so there was like no bass at all in it, but it was all great stuff, you know. What was on that one? Dynamite, My Mud, and This Flight Tonight, Nazareth, and Angel Fingers, Wizard, and Pool Hall Richard by the Faces. Oh, you're bringing back all kind of memories now. D-Ram Records were known as the Kiss of Death Label. I didn't know that, mate. Yes, that was Rivers, Phil, who played on, who did that Bohemian Rhapsody cover on that. And did you know that was actually released as a single in Italy, that cover version of it? And here's another odd little fact about those Top of the Pops albums. Do you know that Elton John played on them before he was Elton John, when he was still just Reg Dwight, jobbing musician and session player? I think you're right, Jeffrey. I think it might have been Hallmark from Woolies. The Hallmark record label. God, we're a bunch of old farts on here tonight, aren't we? You know, we're all remembering the joys of the 70s. Are you? Oh well, you're late. Are you, Peter? Fair enough, mate. Well, you've joined us just as I'm on my last beer, and there's a curry arriving shortly. Saw a great Top of the Pops documentary the other day. House Martins told they were #1 for Christmas, 1986 midweek, but a political comment by Paul Heaton suddenly made Reed Petite #1, so that by the end of the week. Oh, okay. I didn't know that little story. That reminds me of the great Sex Pistols thing, isn't it? When God Save the Queen got to #1, so that week just the charts didn't have a #1. It just stopped at #2. It's like, no, we're not acknowledging this. The Top of the Pops musicians are on YouTube, I'm sure. Sweet Recollections. I know Arthur Sharp. Remember Nashville Teens, Tobacco Road? Okay, yeah, that's something to watch out for. On the subject of those Top of the Pops albums, actually, as anybody who lives in the UK will know, we have a sort of a hardware kind of shop over here, a chain called Wilco. They used to be called Wilkinsons, but now they're just called Wilco's because that's what everybody called them anyway. Go into a branch of Wilco's if you're in the UK and just pay attention to the music that's on the tannoy, and you will notice that it's current or reasonably current music. I'm talking sort of the last 20 years, certainly, and you'll hear Tom Petty and you'll hear Robbie Williams and you'll hear, kind of fairly sort of Bryan Adams. There's another one. And you listen closely and you think, hang on, this isn't the original version. Wilco's in the UK, this hardware store, has essentially the modern equivalent of those Top of the Pops albums playing on their tannoy, because these aren't the original versions, I will swear to it. They're close, but they're not the whole cigar, So I just wondered if anybody else had noticed that. Oh, definitely Pan's people for me. Definitely Pan's people for me, mate. Your mate was a session player for Island Records. Okay, well, fair enough. Can you name any songs that we would know that he played on? Where are we? Sorry, the chat's going by rather fast. You're a talkative bunch tonight. Loop tapes, John. They have tapes of cheap covers to get around copyright. Oh, you're talking about Wilco's there. Yeah, I guess it is on a loop, but it's like, if you're covering something, then surely, I mean, as we know from kind of doing stuff on YouTube, that Marillion solo I did a couple of weeks back, that that was a cover of a copyrighted tune, and yes, Marillion got the money from that one. He played on Sparks albums and ELO. Do you even remember Sparks? Yeah, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. Hill's Angels on the Benny Hill Show. Now they were a childhood memory. Yes, indeed. No, the certainly in the UK, mate, they were branded as Top of the Pops, and they had no affiliation to the show. But they were definitely branded as Top of the Pops. Karaoke version, fantastic for customizing backing tracks. Can adjust, take out any variety of instruments. Usually great copies of the originals. They must pay a license. Yeah. The Girl from Ipanema, how many elevators has that been played in? Indeed. Yes, indeed. Great tune, though. Stan Getz. Fantastic jazz musician. And he wrote that. When I bought Electric Ladyland in the late 60s, it wasn't kept in the record rack. I have to take a blank card to the counter and give it to in a paper bag. Yes, I wonder why. Just these little memories we have. Anyway, chaps, we've been on an hour, and I'm going to swig this beer off and go and get me curry. Thank you once again for just turning up on a Friday evening and giving me an hour of your time to sit and talk cobblers to you. And thank you once again for all the support that you gave me with that chap who was being rather obnoxious. I guess I'll see you all tomorrow in the video tomorrow, and I'll see you all live again next week. But for now, time, gentlemen, please have a great week.